I'm Shannon Exum, co-founder of Team COVID Long Haulers. Find out how my family survived a near tragedy caused by COVID, how we're handling the ups and downs, and how we're learning to thrive in new ways with long COVID. Be sure to visit our website at teamcovidlonghaulers.org. Thank you for joining. This episode, Travis talks about his post-COVID symptoms and validation from doctors.
I want to go through a pretty in-depth detail of my COVID story,
Right.
My hospitalization, recovery, and then our foundation and how that kind of all plays a little bit together. We've talked about each of them individually at certain points, but never kind of put it all together as one whole package. You know, it's been a year. I don't know if you know, or I don't even think you really asked about the specifics of my hospitalization.
I couldn't hear it.
And I don't know if you're interested in talking about that. I mean, this is not planned.
It's not that I wasn't.
Let me just say that we're kind of shooting from the hip here. You know, we've got a little bit of an outline what we want to do here, but I mean, we haven't planned a whole lot of this, and so we haven't really talked about. If you want to talk about, ask some specifics of the hospitalization. Not sure how you want to do that.
I want to clarify, it's not that I wasn't interested or that I'm never interested. It's that it's so tough for me to hear. It's been a year and I'm just now starting to speak my story. And we'll go through that as the interview goes along. I'm sure when little milestones or big milestones in your sickness and in your recovery from a caregiver's perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, plays a huge piece in our foundation because it's our Team COVID Long Haulers is about helping support those who have had COVID, have recovered, but are still dealing with the whole laundry list of side effects. But it also includes caregivers, friends, family members, because I can't tell your story, what you've been through, but I'm going to guess that your story is similar to tens of thousands of other people as well.
Exactly, and that's why I want to tell it. I want to give us a voice too, and it's important that we take due time and work through what we went through, and are still some of us still going through, including me. So.
Yeah, but it's important that, again, part of what what we want to do with our foundation is also includes friends, family members, those who've had some kind of effect, and
spouses. Kids.
If we're being honest, I don't know if there's anybody, any civilized community in this world that hasn't had some kind of effect with COVID. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Whether it's just, somebody that's had it and just was sick for a few days, or somebody who's died and everything in between, everybody has had some kind of dealing, history, story to tell you about COVID. And, that's as important from that standpoint as it is from somebody who is a long hauler and is still dealing with those problems as well.
That's right. Well put.
All right.
I stayed with you in the hospital for a whole day before you came home. And during that time I saw that you were walking with a walker, very slow. You still could not breathe. You were on a lot of oxygen.
Well, 4 to 5 liters. I came home on 4 to 5 liters.
Right. Other things were going on. You had severe chest pain.
Not really.
No?
No, not really.
I'll let you explain the symptoms that you had in your podcast, when you were coming home. But I just remember that you had a lot of things going on. I knew how to maneuver an oxygen tank. I already knew so many things. I knew how to help you turn over. I knew how to help you get up, off the bed. I knew how to help you get out of the chair. I already knew all those things because of what I did for a living. And I wasn't worried about any of that. They let you come home. And then later on, I thought, oh my goodness, if I had known all those things, you would either have had to go to skilled nursing, or you would have been in some trouble at home with a spouse who didn't know what to do.
Well, I think that played a lot. The decision to let me come home was because of that. Because, had you not been a physical therapist, I mean, I would have had to gone to a skilled nursing because, I mean, I was on 4 to 5 liters of oxygen. I mean, I could barely walk with a walker. And so, I mean, that's just not something, I mean, it was all you could do from what I can remember, understand to care for me. And you're a trained professional. And so I think
that's true.
That's really, I think, played a huge part in allowing me to come home and not sending me to another facility is because of your professional experience.
And, like I said before, I did know what to do, and it kicked in. When I got home, it kicked in, but it just was almost like my brain was just paralyzed.
Well, again,
I was just getting
it's different when you're not the caregiver, but it's your family. It's totally different ballgame.
For sure. Came home the first week, you were to stand up. Just to stand up was all you could do. I helped you get in and out of the bathtub. Remember that big bell that I took you?
Mm-hmm.
I gave you privacy because you like to do your music, and you rang the bell when you were ready to come get out. And then we changed the oxygen tubing over. You had a tub oxygen and a regular oxygen. So we changed those over each time, and that was constant oxygen. You had a concentrator for months.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, 6 months? No, 10 months.
Yeah, I didn't come off oxygen completely until around October.
10 months.
Which would have been 10 months into me being home.
And that was wearing it constantly.
Well, no, I came off of it 24 hours a day sometime in the summer, but I still had to have it at night up until October. But I wore it around the clock until, I mean, July-ish or so. I mean, we're talking 7 months.
Exactly. Did PT at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You did speech therapy. And I had to fight for speech therapy. Fighting by means of, I had to do a lot of educating doctors and educating other healthcare providers what the role of speech therapy is versus occupational therapy. And I'll put that in a future cast if anybody's interested. But you needed speech therapy. I called my colleagues to make sure I wasn't crazy. No, he needs speech therapy. This is what he needs for executive thinking, decision making, etc. Because that's what we found out was part of your COVID fog.
Just so people understand without getting a ton into it, but I think your average person, when they hear speech therapy, they don't know entirely what a speech therapist does. It's not just helping with the actual language and speaking. A lot of what they do is with cognition, thinking processes, and that's why I needed to see one, because I had developed, and I still got it to some degree, of the COVID brain fog. Looking back at it, I was getting better, but I don't think now, looking back at it, that at that time, I don't think we realized how big my problems were.
No. We had no idea.
Now looking back, we know, we understand, we know what long COVID is. We
knew that existed.
We know all of this up to this point, but back then that wasn't even a thing, and all I wanted to do is just get off the oxygen so I can start getting back to my normal life.
Right.
And it was looking back now, obviously, and looking back all the time since then, it was way more problems than what we had thought.
Well, and again, me being a 7 Enneagram, if anybody knows what that is, it's the silver lining. Everything's a silver lining, and I could not see what was going on. I couldn't. It was right in front of me.
We just didn't know.
But again, to the caregivers of COVID long haulers and post-COVID patients, it's okay. It's okay that you didn't see it. It's okay. It just is okay, because you do what you can with what you know, and then you move on and you go again.
So nobody really knew anything at that point. I mean, that point was just a year into it.
No, and I was seeing things, or seeing him demonstrate things in the clinic, and I would go with him to his physical therapy, and I'm like, what? I was baffled. I'm like, what is this I'm seeing here? I saw some tendencies and some traits. I'm like, this is like nothing I've ever seen, and I couldn't explain it with my words. So I had to go home and figure out the words to match with the diagnosis that it most mirrored. And so that was a big thing, so that I could go back and articulate to the doctor and the PTs what I was seeing. So we figured it out together, and that was not an easy path, the physical therapy. So what first happened was he would come home and he would be tired. Well, okay, fine. It's okay for somebody to be tired. But then I'm like, wow, is this how tired patients are when I send them home from PT? My gosh, no wonder. What the crap? So I'm all of a sudden I'm on the other side being a family member now, the dreaded family member, whatever. So that's what was happening. And then finally, it was like day 2 and day 3, and he wasn't recovering. He wasn't bouncing back. He's like, I can't stand up. I can't stand up. And so he was having trouble going from a seated position to a standing position 2 days after his physical therapy, after physical exercise. And I'd go back and report it to the PT, and they're like, no, I'm like, listen, I am telling you that this is what's happening. This is not, delayed onset muscle soreness. This isn't that. And so I kept on and on. Thankfully, I knew better. Ditched to the doctor and just wouldn't take no for an answer. And she did it was her idea though to do the initials, CPK.
Well, rhabdomyolysis
Yes.
is what the condition is, and without giving you a super long explanation of it, so rhabdomyolysis is when you have pretty moderate muscle damage. Now, that could be a lot of times when somebody gets into a pretty bad car wreck and are thrown around the car, they draw that specific labs.
In January, I took off some time when you first came home from the hospital, and we got you set up. Haley came up. She's an occupational therapist assistant, so she was able to help with his fine motor, his medication management. He couldn't do any of that. And now remember, he's a nurse. He is a nurse, and he couldn't do his own medication management. So Haley was helping you with that. So we were very, very fortunate that we had people in our family that knew, and we had huge resources. And we said along the way, what about those who don't? Mm-hmm. We do with what we have, and we're still struggling. What about those who don't? And so that was kind of in the back of our minds the whole time, like, what the crap is going on here? This is unbelievable what's happening. So 1 month passed, 2 months passed, and you got a little better. I remember when you were able to walk to the mailbox. And ups and downs, that's for sure. Join us in episode 5 as Travis recollects mental and physical setbacks from post-COVID. Also, we'll talk more about Tony. Join us!